soon as that happened, Bob rolled into town, and him and Kim took the LSU thing and they drove that train to the national championship. So sometimes things just kind of happen for a reason. I think women's basketball is kind of in a resurgence phase right now in all of athletics, but especially in the college athletic world. This guy here has been with three of my favorite people: Dale Brown, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, and Stanley Roberts. He's coached Simone Augustus and Tamika Johnson and a whole slew of really, really good LSU basketball players. He took a little brief hiatus to Texas A&M, flipped over to Auburn for a second. Forgive me for that. But then he made his way back home at the right time, and things have worked out really tremendously for him. He understands what it takes to be successful in a men's program and a women's program. He's seen both sides of what happens. And I asked him to come talk to y'all tonight a little bit about, you know, the resurgence of women's basketball and what it means to the women who want to continue to try to play college athletics, even if it's not at the highest level at LSU. So without further ado, one of my good friends, Bob Starkey.
Thank you. Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys, and I have a greater appreciation and understanding for what you guys are doing than probably you realize, and I'll get to that a little bit later. I want to start off with April 2nd. You know, we're at American Airlines Arena. We're playing in front of 19,500. By the way, the game had been sold out for a year. And we played in front of the TV audience for that game was 9.9 million views. To give you perspective, that was a larger TV audience than LSU and Alabama football last year. So to say that women's basketball is growing is an understatement. It is growing at warp speed right now at all levels. And I can tell you that as somebody who goes and watches junior college games, I'm in the gym, go to high school games, you see it at the WNBA, you see it with TV figures. The game is growing, it's catching on, people are coming to see it. There's things that need to be done, and we'll talk about some of those today. But when I think about that game, we're up 32-26 against Iowa. Championship game. There's 6 minutes and 26 seconds to play, and our All-SEC point guard picks up her second foul. And if you watch this enough, you know how important Alexis was to us on both ends of the floor. And so enter Last-Tier Poa. Last-Tier Poa is a junior college kid. Comes from a junior college in Florida. The irony with Last-Tier Poa is she's from Australia. She actually played in Australia for a former Lady Tiger named Katrina Hibbert. But she comes in the game, and in 6 minutes and 26 seconds, she hits 2 threes. She has 2 assists that leads to 2 threes, so that's 6 points right there. She picks up 2 charges on Caitlin Clark, so she has to go to the bench. And by the time that 6 minutes and 26 seconds are over, we go to halftime, we go from a 6-point lead to a 17-point lead. And really and truly, it was that segment right there that won the national championship for us. Now, it wasn't just her. Jasmine Carson went off and was hitting threes. We had other players, but if you know anything about basketball, that point guard position is everything. It's everything. And what Poa did right there was amazing. There's a great segment. As soon as the game is over, our kids are cutting down the nets, and over in the end zone is Simone Augustus, Keisha James, Katie Anthony, Ashley Thomas, Patty Hinton, just a slew of our former players. And I immediately went over and gave them a hug and thanked them. And I told them this doesn't happen without them. Seeds have to be planted. Sometimes you plant seeds and you may not be around to enjoy the shade, but they have to be planted. We don't get there without what those kids did. Now, I want to go back even further and talk to you about where LSU women's basketball really changed. 1995, the 3 seasons previous to that, LSU had 3 consecutive losing seasons. I'm talking 10-18, 11-16, 8-20. And the administration called Coach Gunner in and said, you got a year to fix this, or we're going another direction. Hall of Fame coach, you got to win. She said, I understand. Didn't make any excuses. Didn't argue. Got in the car, was gone for about 2 or 3 weeks. By the time she came back, she signed 4 junior college basketball players. Elaine Powell, Pietra Gay, Tony Gross, Aga Chelslak. Now, those next 2 years those kids played, Pietra, Tony, and Elaine started every game. They were the 3 leading scorers. Aga started 50% of the game. Their first year as Lady Tigers with those 4 junior college players, the Lady Tigers won 21 games, one of the biggest turnarounds in SEC history for a women's basketball program. Their senior year, the next year, they won 25 games, only 5 losses, and went to a Sweet 16. So if you want to look at the springboard for LSU women's basketball, you go back to those 4 junior college kids. By the way, Paula Lee coached those 2 teams. She was there on that staff for those kids that helped turn the program around. So junior, and you can look around the entire league, the entire country, and there's tons of junior college players that are impacting programs. And the reason for that, because they already come in, they already know what college is about. They've already been coached on the college level. They've already played against college-like athletes. They've already been through the academics, the structure, all the things that go on the college campus. That's why junior college players are attracted to college coaches. And there's been a bunch of, Brock mentioned that I was at Texas A&M for 9 years. The year before I got to Texas A&M, they won a national championship. Their best player was a young lady named Danielle Adams, who was the Final Four MVP, junior college player. Yolanda Griffith, Naismith Hall of Fame, 2-time Olympic gold medalist, WNBA champion, junior college player. Arguably the greatest player to ever play the game. And let's see, 3 gold medals, 4 WNBA championships, I don't know how many MVPs. Naismith Hall of Famer Cheryl Swoops won a national championship at Texas Tech. So there's just tons. And they don't have to be great players. There have been a lot of great role players. What I want to talk to you next about is the attitude of champions, because it doesn't matter where you're at. There's certain intangibles and parameters that have to be followed. There is a phenomenal little paperback book called Make the Big Time Where You Are. It's written by a guy who passed away a couple years ago named Frosty Westerling, who coached an NAI football team and had opportunities to go Division II, Division I as an assistant, and just really loved where he was at and what he was doing. And he talked about all the things that he did to go in to make that program successful. A little bit about my background. I started out coaching on the NAI level. And NAI level is a really, really tough level to coach at. So I'm at West Virginia State College. It's an HBC. At HBC, they had a player by the name of Earl Lloyd, who's the first African American to play in the WNBA. But when I was there, we had no scholarships. We didn't have a manager. We only had 1 assistant coach, me. Our court wasn't regulation because there wasn't enough room for it. In the winter months in West Virginia, they turned the heat off to save money. I could go on and on and on. Then to make things worse, we're 15 minutes down the road from the University of Charleston, another NAIA school that had scholarships. We're 30 minutes down the road away from Marshall University, Division I school, and we're in the state of West Virginia, where West Virginia University is the king. So we're really an afterthought to a lot of people when we first took over the job. When I went there, the year before I came there, West Virginia State was 4-24. And I was offered a salary of $6,000. I was given a room in the dormitory and a meal card. That was my first college job. Our first year, we won 18 games. We went 18-10. Massive turnaround. It's an NAIA school. Athletic director calls me and says, "Bob, you did a great job. I hate to tell you this, but we got to drop your salary from $6,000 to $4,000, and we cannot afford the meal card." That next year, we won 24 games, went 24-8. End of the year, Dr. Treadway called me in and said, "Coach, I'm sorry. We got to drop your salary to $2,000. We can't afford the dormitory." So I go grab my clothes. I move them to my office. I live in my office. We go 31-3. We're national runner-up. Losing a national championship game by 2 points because a guy missed a free throw blockout. I still get pissed when we miss free throw blockouts, by the way. But here's the thing about that job. We only had one office. We created 2 offices. We redid the locker room. we created a weight room, and we did this by going out and hustling, trying to find people in the community that would donate a piece of carpet, a piece of plywood, a few bucks here and there, and then we did the work. I paint, I laid carpet, we built things. We wanted to make the big time where we were at. That NAIA team that could only afford to pay me $6,400 and $2,000 went to Hawaii 3 straight years. We came up with the thing we called a basketball marathon, where we played basketball for 24 straight hours. And it was carried on the radio, and people contributed money for every hour and we raised money so we could take our team to Hawaii 3 straight years. There are going to be jobs where you're going to be challenged in terms of resources, but you'll never be challenged by your imagination or your work ethic. It's just rolling up your sleeve and getting to work. We were talking earlier, when I first joined Sue Gunner's staff at LSU, she called me in the office and she said, "You're heading up the Fast Break Club." I said, "Awesome." I said, "What is it?" And she said, "We have 8 people. It costs $25, and we give them a shirt." I said, "Okay." Within 10 years, we had about 250 people at the all-conference level that paid $250 a year. We had 10 to 15 people at the All-American level that paid $1,000, and we had close to 20 at the Hall of Fame level that donated $5,000. That did not happen overnight. We had to start with those 8 people paying $25, and we had to work. But my point is, it can be done. And and you say, "Well, that's LSU." Well, yeah, but guess what? We're competing against men's basketball, football, baseball, gymnastics. There's competition for women's basketball, certainly back then. It's just a matter of rolling up your sleeve, working hard, and understanding that it will not happen overnight. And there'll be disappointments and setbacks in terms of raising money, creating your fan base, all those things. And you know, LSU just went through one. When I left LSU, those were the numbers for the Fast Break Club. A new staff comes in. They're there, I don't know, 9 or 10 years. Kim comes in, and the Fast Break Club is back down to 25 people. She had to rebuild it. But you do that by making your program accessible, taking your program to the community. Make sure you're there shaking hands, you're signing autographs. Make sure you're getting involved in community projects outside. It can't just be about you. But that's how you do it, and it's doable. I'm just telling you, it's doable. One of my mentors is a guy named Don Meyer, and he had a quote: "It doesn't matter where you coach, it matters why." And that's something that I have taken dear to my heart. Okay? The intangibles that come from a collegiate athletic department go well beyond wins and losses. You know, it's funny, the president of the university, or your chancellor, whoever was here, was telling me that when he played Tulane, he played for Mac Brown. Mac Brown was an outstanding football coach. Mac Brown at Texas won a national championship. And I'll get goosebumps. I tell the story all the time. So you can imagine NCAA football, they win a national championship. They're in the locker room. They're screaming, they're yelling, they're hollering, everybody's celebrating. He gets them to settle down and he tells them this: "Don't let this be the highlight of your life." Well, that's a heck of a perspective to tell your kids right there. There are greater things that you're going to accomplish in life because of the lessons you've learned being an athlete. The things that go on in the collegiate program, teaching them teamwork, discipline, structure, how to handle failure and adversity, which we're really getting away from a little bit. Those are things that serve student athletes for a lifetime. And it doesn't matter if those lessons are learned at a junior college, an NAIA program, a BCS program. It doesn't matter. Those are the reasons why having an outstanding athletic department with coaches doing things the right way, with an administration that supports that, and an institution that supports that. I remember Mark Emmer, who just retired as the head of the NCAA, would meet with our athletic department every year, and he would make the comment that athletics are the front porch of every university. Now, is the front porch more important than the living room, the kitchen? No, not in, but that front porch brings people in to get them involved. Okay, that's another reason I think athletics are important. And there are so many success stories in junior college. I read Morgan Freeman went to junior college, and will tell you that he had a voice instructor there that changed his life. And if you listen to Morgan's voice now, that must have been a heck of a teacher. Halle Berry went to school to major in journalism, and she had a journalism teacher that said she really needs to try acting. I mean, Walt Disney, Steve Jobs. I mean, there's tons of people that started out in junior college and got the base they needed to be successful. The most important thing I just want to get, you guys are here for a purpose. You guys are doing great stuff. You just need to know that. You just need to know that. And we need to help Paula get this program to where it can touch more people and have a wider base, and that in turn will help everybody. Does that make sense? Doc Rivers is one of my idols. Of course, he got fired yesterday. That's another part of the business we're in. But when he was at the Celtics, he used a South African word called Ubuntu. What Ubuntu means is I am because we are. And I think that's the way a team operates, whether it's a basketball team, a university, or a family. And to me, the fact that Brock and Paula are putting this on, these are the seeds. These are the seeds. 10 years from now, we need to make sure we stay in touch with all you guys when we come back, and you can see the fruits that came about from this start.